What if a tiny 1-cent coin hiding in your old change could be worth a shocking amount of money? Today, we're revealing coin number 4, a Lincoln wheat penny with no mint mark that may look completely ordinary, but its condition, reddish-brown copper color, sharp rim, and surviving wheat details make it worth a serious inspection. Don't spend that old penny just yet because one tiny detail could completely change its story. Stay with me because by the end, you'll know exactly what to look for. First up, the 1940 Lincoln wheat penny with no mint mark, and the coin we're examining has some fascinating characteristics. Light to moderate wear across Lincoln's hair and shoulder details, surprisingly sharp wheat stalk lines on the reverse, smooth original copper surfaces, and inscriptions that remain completely clear and readable. But here's where this story gets interesting. The value of an old coin is not determined simply by its age. Collectors look at condition, preservation, color, strike quality, surface appearance, rarity, demand, and most importantly, the exact characteristics that separate an ordinary survivor from an exceptional collectible. And when those factors come together, the numbers can become astonishing. For this particular example, the claimed market value we're using for today's video is $67.00. Now, before you start searching every penny jar in your house, there's something you need to understand. Not every 1940 wheat penny is worth anything remotely close to that amount. In fact, documented auction records show that ordinary examples and even high-grade examples can sell for dramatically different prices depending on condition and certification. So why can a seemingly tiny 1-cent coin become such a fascinating treasure? That is exactly what we're going to uncover. This isn't just a story about a penny. It's a story about preservation, history, collector psychology, and the incredible difference a few tiny details can make. So stay with me, because by the end of this segment, you'll know exactly what to examine on a 1940 wheat penny and why a coin that looks ordinary at first glance can deserve a much closer inspection. The first thing to understand is the identity of this coin. The 1940 Lincoln wheat penny belongs to the famous Lincoln cent series, introduced in 1909 featuring Victor David Brenner's portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse. Turn the coin over and you'll find the classic wheat reverse, with 2 wheat ears surrounding the denomination and the inscriptions 1 cent and United States of America. That reverse design is one of the reasons these coins remain so popular with American collectors. The wheat stalks instantly tell you that you're holding a coin from an earlier era of U.S. coinage. And because this particular coin has no mint mark, it was produced at the Philadelphia Mint. According to PCGS, the Philadelphia issue had a reported mintage of 810,000 pieces. At first, that number might make the coin sound common, and technically the date itself is not an ultra-low mintage issue. That's an important distinction. A coin doesn't automatically become rare simply because it is old. Millions of 1,940 cents were produced, and many entered circulation. Over the decades, however, coins were spent, lost, damaged, cleaned, exposed to moisture, corroded, melted, or simply disappeared into collections. The surviving population is therefore very different from the original production figure. And then comes the most important factor, condition. When you examine this particular 1940 wheat penny, the first feature to notice is the wear on Lincoln's portrait. The hair and shoulder details show light to moderate circulation wear. That tells us the coin was not preserved in a pristine, untouched state. High points on Lincoln's design naturally receive contact during circulation, and those areas tend to flatten first. Look closely around the hair above Lincoln's ear, the cheek, jawline, and shoulder. These locations can reveal just how much handling the coin experienced. But don't stop there. Flip the coin over. The reverse can tell a completely different story. The wheat stalk lines are described as remaining sharp and clearly visible. That is important because the fine details of the wheat ears are among the areas collectors inspect when judging strike and preservation. A coin can have some circulation wear while still retaining surprisingly attractive reverse detail. That's where the combination of condition and eye appeal begins to matter. Next, examine the surfaces. Smooth original copper surfaces are particularly interesting because copper coins can change dramatically with age. Freshly struck copper cents originally had a bright reddish appearance, but exposure to air and the environment can gradually transform that color into reddish-brown or brown tones. Collectors often pay close attention to whether a coin retains original color, has natural toning, or appears artificially altered. This is one reason cleaning can be such a serious issue. A coin that has been harshly cleaned may look shiny, but experienced collectors can often recognize unnatural surfaces, hairlines, or an altered appearance. A naturally aged copper surface can be far more desirable than a bright-looking coin that has been improperly polished. Now, let's talk about the inscriptions. On the obverse, you'll want to inspect Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date. On the reverse, examine United States of America, E Pluribus Unum, and 1 cent. Clear, fully legible lettering is important because severe circulation can gradually soften design elements and inscriptions. In our example, the inscriptions remain clearly readable, which adds to its overall visual appeal. But here's the twist. The absence of a mint mark isn't an error. For this particular issue, no mint mark indicates Philadelphia production. That means you should not automatically assume that every 1940 penny without a mint mark is rare. Instead, you need to combine the date, mint origin, condition, surfaces, color, strike, and any unusual characteristics. This is where many new collectors make their biggest mistake. They see an old date and assume the coin must be worth thousands. The reality is much more nuanced. A 1940 wheat penny can be an inexpensive collectible in circulated condition, while an extraordinary high-grade example can command dramatically more. That's why the stated $67,000 figure for the coin in this video should be treated as a claimed or hypothetical market valuation rather than a guaranteed sale price for every coin matching the description. Auction prices depend on grade, certification, provenance, eye appeal, buyer demand, and the specific coin being offered. If you actually own a 1940 wheat penny, the smartest approach is not to assume a huge value immediately. Instead, inspect it carefully and avoid altering it. Don't clean it. Don't polish it. Don't scratch the surface to test the metal. Don't attempt to remove discoloration. And don't use harsh chemicals. Those actions can permanently reduce collector appeal. Instead, handle the coin by its edges and consider having an especially attractive or unusual example examined by a reputable coin dealer or professional grading service. Another fascinating aspect of the 1940 Lincoln cent is how much collector attention can focus on exceptional grades. That is a perfect demonstration of the coin market's central principle. Condition can completely change the story. Two coins with the same date can have dramatically different values because one has survived with superior surfaces, stronger color, sharper details, and fewer imperfections. Think about what that means. The coin's date doesn't change. Lincoln's portrait doesn't change. The denomination doesn't change. What changes is how successfully that tiny piece of history survived decades of circulation and storage. That's why collectors examine coins under magnification. A small contact mark, discoloration spot, scratch, weak strike, or surface disturbance can affect the final grade. And when you're talking about elite coins, even microscopic differences can matter. The 1940 Lincoln cent also has another interesting chapter, proof examples. Heritage has recorded several 1940 proof cents selling for thousands of dollars, including a red example that sold for $7,931.25 in 2013. But don't confuse those proof coins with the regular circulation strike we're discussing. Proof coins were specially produced for collectors and have different characteristics and catalog identifiers. This distinction is essential when researching any potentially valuable coin. So, if you're holding a 1940 wheat penny right now, here's your inspection checklist. Start with the date. Confirm that it is genuinely from 1940th. Next, check the mint mark area beneath the date. If there is no mint mark, you're looking at the Philadelphia issue. Then inspect Lincoln's hair, cheek, jaw, shoulder, and coat. Look for remaining detail rather than simply asking whether the coin looks old. Turn the coin over and examine both wheat ears. Are the lines sharp or heavily flattened? Check the lettering. Is it strong and complete? Then study the surfaces under good lighting. Look for scratches, cleaning, corrosion, spots, or unnatural shine. Finally, examine the overall color. Copper coins can develop beautiful natural toning, but color alone doesn't establish rarity. The biggest lesson here is simple. Don't judge a coin by its face value. A 1-cent piece can carry decades of American history in an area smaller than your thumb. It may have passed through grocery stores, gas stations, cash registers, pockets, jars, and countless hands before eventually disappearing into someone's collection. And that's what makes searching for old coins so exciting. You never know what story is sitting at the bottom of an old box. The 1940 Lincoln wheat penny may not be rare simply because it lacks a mint mark, and a $67,000 valuation should never be assumed for every circulated example. But the possibility of discovering an unusually valuable or conditionally rare coin is exactly why collectors continue searching. The documented auction record of $14,950 shows that exceptional 1940 cents can indeed reach significant prices, while more recent sales demonstrate that value varies enormously with grade and quality. Next up, the 1951 Lincoln wheat penny with the Denver D mint mark. At first glance, it may look like nothing more than an old, worn 1-cent coin, but when you know what to look for, even the smallest details can become incredibly important. And this particular example has several characteristics that deserve a serious inspection. Light to moderate surface wear across Lincoln's cheekbone and hair, clear wheat stalk lines on the reverse, a noticeable dark toning patch behind Lincoln's neck, sharply legible inscriptions, and a complete, clearly defined rim. Now here is where the suspense begins. Why would anyone place a $40,000 value on a 1-cent coin? Is the date itself rare? Is the Denver mint mark hiding a secret? Could an unusual variety or minting characteristic transform an ordinary wheat penny into a collector's dream? Keep watching, because we are going to examine this coin from the date and mint mark all the way to the smallest details of its surfaces, and by the end, you will know exactly what could make a 1951D wheat penny worth investigating before you ever spend, sell, or discard one. Let's begin with the coin itself. The 1951 Lincoln wheat penny belongs to one of the most famous coin series in American history. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the Lincoln cent had already become an iconic part of everyday American life by the time this coin was struck. On the front, we see Abraham Lincoln facing right, with the familiar inscription Liberty to the left, the date beneath his portrait and the mint mark positioned below the date when applicable. On the reverse, 2 wheat ears frame the inscriptions, creating the design that gave these coins their famous nickname, the wheat penny. And when you hold a 1951D in your hand, you are holding a small piece of post-war American history. The D tells us that this particular coin was struck at the Denver Mint. That tiny letter is one of the first things every collector should inspect. But here is the important part. Simply having a D does not automatically make a 1951 penny rare or worth thousands. The real treasure hunt begins when we start examining the individual characteristics of the coin. Our featured example shows light to moderate surface wear, especially around Lincoln's cheekbone and hair. Those areas are important because they are among the first places where circulation can become visible. Every time a coin moves through pockets, cash registers, coin machines, or collections, the highest points of the design can experience friction. On Lincoln's portrait, the cheek and hair are particularly useful areas for judging how much wear the coin has experienced. A sharply defined cheek and strong hair detail could suggest a much better preserved specimen, while visible smoothing indicates circulation. But moderate wear does not automatically make a coin worthless. Far from it. Collectors evaluate the entire coin, not just one area. That means we need to look at the reverse too. Turn the penny over, and the wheat stalks immediately become the star of the show. On this example, the wheat stalk lines remain clear and visible. That is an attractive characteristic because it shows that the reverse design has retained meaningful detail despite the coin's age and circulation. Look closely at the stalks, the lettering, the denomination, and the surrounding fields. Are the lines crisp? Are the letters complete? Does the rim remain intact? Does the coin show natural aging rather than severe damage? These questions matter because the condition of a copper coin can dramatically affect collector interest. And then we come to one of the most noticeable characteristics on this particular coin, a dark spot or toning patch behind Lincoln's neck. This is where collectors need to slow down. A dark area on an old copper coin can have several possible explanations. It could be natural toning caused by decades of exposure to the environment. It could be discoloration from storage. It could be staining, oxidation, or environmental damage. The exact appearance matters. Natural toning can sometimes be accepted or even appreciated by collectors, while corrosion, harsh cleaning, or artificial alteration can significantly hurt desirability. So never assume that a dark spot automatically means rarity. Instead, study the texture and color carefully. Does the surface remain smooth? Does the color appear naturally blended into the copper? Or does it look rough, pitted, or chemically altered? That distinction can be extremely important. Now look at the inscriptions. On our featured coin, the lettering is described as clear and fully legible. That includes the major design elements and the date. A complete rim is also present, giving the coin a strong overall outline. For a circulated coin, intact rims and readable details are certainly positive characteristics. But the biggest question remains, where does the $40,000 figure come from? This is where a serious coin collector must separate an exciting headline from verified market evidence. A normal 1951D Lincoln wheat penny is not generally a $40,000 coin. Published pricing references and auction records show ordinary examples selling for much less. So if you have a 1951D penny, you should never assume it is worth $40,000 simply because the date and mint mark match. Instead, the high-value scenario would require something extraordinary, such as a recognized and authenticated variety, exceptional preservation, or another significant characteristic that makes the coin substantially more desirable than a normal example. This is why the mint mark deserves special attention. Use magnification and inspect the D. Does the mint mark appear normal? Does it show unusual features consistent with a recognized variety? Could there be evidence of a repunched mint mark or another documented die characteristic? Do not confuse random scratches or damage with a true minting variety. Genuine varieties are typically identified through specific, repeatable characteristics created during the minting process. That is one reason professional references and authentication are so important. Now inspect the date. Look carefully at each digit. Check the spacing, shapes, and surrounding fields. Then examine the letters of Liberty and the motto, "In God We Trust." Look for unusual doubling, but remember that not every second-looking edge is valuable doubling. Mechanical or strike-related effects can sometimes create appearances that look dramatic under a magnifying glass but have little collector premium. The same principle applies to scratches. A scratch created after the coin left the mint is not the same thing as a raised die characteristic created during production. That difference is absolutely critical. Now flip the coin again and inspect the reverse. The wheat ears should be studied from end to end. Check the lines, the lettering, the denomination, and the spaces between the design elements. Also inspect the rim for dents, flattening, or missing detail. The goal is not to search for one magical mark, it is to build a complete profile of the coin. That is exactly how professional collectors approach potentially valuable pieces. And here is another rule every beginner should remember. Never clean a potentially valuable wheat penny. Do not polish it. Do not rub it with a cloth. Do not use vinegar, baking soda, metal polish, abrasive materials, or household chemicals. Copper coins can develop permanent surface changes from cleaning, and once those surfaces are altered, the coin may become much less desirable to serious collectors. If you think you have discovered an unusual 1951D, protect it in a suitable holder and seek an evaluation from a reputable numismatic professional or third-party grading service. Now imagine the scenario. You open an old family box and discover several Lincoln wheat pennies. Most look ordinary. One is dated 1951. You notice the little D. You turn it over and see strong wheat details. The rim is complete. The lettering is clear. Then you notice the unusual toning behind Lincoln's neck. You grab a magnifying glass. Suddenly, you begin wondering, could this be something special? That moment, that curiosity, is exactly what makes coin collecting so addictive. The possibility of discovering an unusual variety keeps collectors searching through old jars, inherited collections, estate sale finds, and forgotten albums. But remember, the real value is determined by the coin's specific attributes and the marketplace, not by a dramatic number printed in a video title. For our featured scenario, we are highlighting a potential $40,000 valuation, but that should be treated as a claimed or target figure rather than the normal market price for an ordinary 1951D cent. The actual market value can vary enormously depending on variety, grade, originality, eye appeal, and authentication. And that is the most important lesson from coin number 2. Do not look at an old penny and simply ask, how old is it? Ask better questions. Where was it minted? What condition is it in? Is there a recognized variety? Is the color natural? Are the surfaces original? Are the design details strong? Does the coin have damage or alterations? Has a professional service authenticated it? Those questions can turn casual pocket change searching into serious numismatic research. Next up, the 1946 Lincoln Wheat Penny without a mint mark, showing extremely fine characteristics. Light to moderate wear across Lincoln's cheekbone and hair, clear wheat stalk detail on the reverse, natural brown copper patination, slight dark toning around the fields, fully legible inscriptions, and a complete rim. And in the valuation scenario featured in this video, this coin is being presented at an incredible $55 zeroth. But before you start searching your pockets, there is a much bigger question. What would actually make a 1946 wheat penny valuable? Is the missing mint mark important? Does the condition make the difference? Could there be a hidden variety or unusual minting characteristic? Or could one tiny detail separate an ordinary cent from a coin collector's? Would seriously investigate? Stay with me, because we are going to examine this penny from every angle, and by the end, you will know exactly what to look for before you ever spend, clean, or sell a 1946 Lincoln Wheat Penny. Let's begin with the coin's most obvious clue, the missing mint mark. When you look underneath the date on this 1946 Lincoln cent and see no letter, that does not automatically mean the coin is an error. Philadelphia minted Lincoln cents traditionally carried no mint mark, so a 1946 penny without a mint mark can be a normal Philadelphia issue. That is an extremely important distinction for anyone searching old coins. A missing mint mark only becomes especially interesting when the coin is supposed to have one, or when another recognized characteristic is present. So the first rule is simple. Never assume that no mint mark automatically means rare. Instead, identify exactly what the mint was producing during that year. The 1946 Lincoln cent belongs to a fascinating period in American history. World War II had just ended, and the United States was entering a major post-war transition. During the war years, Lincoln cents had temporarily been produced with a zinc-coated steel composition because copper and other materials were strategically important. By 1946, the traditional bronze composition had returned. That makes this coin part of an important transition in American coinage history. You are not simply looking at an old penny. You are looking at a small piece of the post-war United States. Now bring the coin closer and examine Abraham Lincoln's portrait. The featured example is described as extremely fine, with light to moderate surface wear visible on Lincoln's cheekbone and hair. These areas are extremely useful when evaluating circulated Lincoln cents. The cheekbone is one of the higher points of the portrait, and repeated contact with other coins, pockets, counters, and surfaces can gradually smooth the detail. Lincoln's hair is another area where circulation becomes obvious. On a heavily circulated coin, the hair can become noticeably flat, while a better preserved example retains more individual definition. In this particular scenario, the wear is described as light to moderate, meaning the coin still retains substantial design detail while showing evidence that it spent some time in circulation. That can be appealing to collectors because it allows us to see the coin's history without the extreme damage found on heavily worn pieces. But condition is only one part of the story. Next, examine the fields surrounding Lincoln. Are they smooth? Are there scratches? Are there deep contact marks? Does the surface look natural? Is there evidence that somebody attempted to clean or polish the coin? These questions are critical because a coin's originality can be more important than simply making it look shiny. In fact, one of the biggest mistakes a new collector can make is trying to improve an old copper coin. Never polish a potentially valuable wheat penny. Never scrub it with a cloth. Never use household chemicals, vinegar, abrasive materials, or metal polish to make the copper brighter. Cleaning can leave permanent hairlines and unnatural surfaces that may reduce collector interest. If the coin is potentially valuable, preserve it exactly as you found it. Now turn the penny over, because the reverse tells another part of the story. The famous two wheat ears immediately identify this as a Lincoln wheat cent. These wheat stalks are not just decorative, they are among the most recognizable features of the entire series. On the featured coin, the wheat stalk detail lines remain clear. That is important because those details can help us understand how much circulation the coin experienced. Examine the individual lines carefully. Do they remain visible? Are the outer wheat ears complete? How much detail remains around the lettering and denomination? Then move toward the fields and inspect the surface for marks, scratches, discoloration, or corrosion. A coin can have beautiful wheat detail, but still have problems that influence its value. This is why experienced collectors examine the entire coin, rather than focusing on one impressive feature. Now, look at the color. The coin is described as having natural brown copper patination with slight dark toning around the fields. Copper changes naturally over time, and a coin that has spent decades in a collection may develop shades ranging from reddish copper to reddish brown and deeper brown. Natural toning can be completely normal on an old cent. The key question is whether the color looks original and stable, or whether it suggests environmental damage or artificial treatment. Those slight dark areas around the fields deserve inspection, but they should not automatically be interpreted as an error. Dark toning can result from storage conditions, oxidation, or other environmental factors. If the surface is smooth and the color blends naturally, it may simply be part of the coin's aging process. If the surface is rough or pitted, that could indicate corrosion or environmental damage. This distinction can make a major difference when a coin is professionally evaluated. Next, examine the inscriptions. On our featured example, the major lettering is described as clear and fully legible. The date is readable, the Lincoln portrait remains identifiable, and the reverse lettering is intact. The complete rim is another positive characteristic. A sharply defined rim gives the coin a clean outline and shows that the edge area has not suffered severe flattening or damage. But once again, we need to ask the big question: how could this coin possibly be connected to a $55,000 valuation? Here is where responsible collecting becomes extremely important. A normal 1,946 Philadelphia Lincoln wheat penny is not automatically worth $55. Zeroth large numbers were produced, and ordinary circulated examples are generally worth dramatically less. Therefore, the $55,000 figure used in this video should be understood as the featured valuation scenario, not a guaranteed market price for every 1,946 penny without a mint mark. For a coin to legitimately command a five-figure price, there would need to be strong evidence of exceptional rarity, a recognized variety, extraordinary grade, or another characteristic supported by professional authentication and actual market activity. This is where the investigation becomes exciting. Start with the date. Use magnification and examine each digit carefully. Look for unusual doubling or other characteristics that appear to be part of the original die. Then inspect the letters of liberty and the motto, "In God We Trust." Are there unusual raised features? Are the letters shaped normally? Do any apparent doubled areas correspond to a documented variety? Be careful because not everything that looks like doubling is valuable. Mechanical doubling, scratches, die deterioration, and post-mint damage can create confusing appearances. Genuine collectible varieties normally have specific characteristics that can be compared with trusted numismatic references. That is why professional attribution matters. Now, flip the coin and examine the reverse again. Follow the wheat stalks from top to bottom. Study the lettering. Inspect the spaces between the design elements. Look at the fields for unusual raised lines, die cracks, chips, or other characteristics. Then inspect the rim all the way around. The goal is to create a complete profile of the coin. This is exactly how a serious collector approaches a potentially valuable discovery. Imagine finding this coin in a family collection. You open an old envelope and there it is, a brown Lincoln wheat penny. You turn it over. The wheat stalks are still surprisingly clear. You look at the date and see 1946. There is no mint mark. You inspect Lincoln's portrait and notice the light wear on his cheek and hair. The surface has a natural brown appearance with subtle darker areas around the fields. The inscriptions remain clear and the rim looks complete. Suddenly, you realize that this is not something you should casually throw into a spending pile. You reach for a magnifying glass and begin looking for clues. That moment is what makes coin collecting so addictive. But remember, excitement should never replace verification. If you discover something unusual, do not immediately list the coin online for a huge amount. First, identify the coin. Then determine whether the characteristic is genuine. Then establish the condition. Finally, investigate documented sales and professional valuations. This order matters. Otherwise, It is easy to confuse an ordinary coin with a rare variety or an internet rumor with an actual auction result. Another important factor is grade. The phrase extremely fine describes a coin that has experienced circulation but still retains significant detail. However, the exact grade should ideally be assigned by an experienced professional or third-party grading service. Small differences in wear, surface quality, strike, color, and preservation can affect the final assessment. Two coins can look nearly identical to an inexperienced collector while receiving different professional grades. That is especially important with copper coins, where originality and color can influence collector demand. And if you suspect that your 1,946 cent has an unusual characteristic, professional authentication becomes even more important. A genuine variety can be valuable, but a damaged coin that merely resembles a variety usually will not carry the same premium. So, what should you do if you find a 1,946 Lincoln wheat penny without a mint mark? First, do not clean it. Second, handle it carefully by the edges. Third, examine the date and surfaces under good lighting. Fourth, inspect the portrait and reverse for unusual characteristics. Fifth, compare your findings with trusted numismatic references. And finally, if the coin appears genuinely unusual, consider professional evaluation. Now, think about the history behind this little cent. In 1946, America was rebuilding and changing after one of the most significant conflicts in modern history. A coin like this could have entered circulation during a completely different America than the one we know today. It could have been used at a neighborhood store, carried in a worker's pocket, placed in a cash register, or saved by someone who simply thought it looked interesting. Decades later, that same coin could end up inside a collector's album. Every scratch, every color change, and every surviving design line can be part of that journey. That is why collectors love wheat pennies. They connect everyday American life with tangible history. Now, let's return one final time to that $55,000 figure. For this video's featured scenario, we are highlighting $55,000 as the claimed value, but the actual value of an individual 1,946 Philadelphia cent depends on its precise characteristics. A normal circulated coin should not be assumed to have that value. A legitimate five-figure valuation would require evidence that this particular specimen is extraordinary. That could involve a rare and authenticated variety, an exceptional grade, or another unusual feature with strong collector demand. Next up, the 1958 Lincoln wheat penny from the portrait of Abraham Lincoln to the smallest details on the reverse, and I will show you exactly why you should never judge an old coin simply by its face value. Let's begin with one of the most important clues on the coin, the absence of a mint mark. When you look underneath the date on this 1958 Lincoln cent and see no letter, that does not automatically mean the coin is an error. In fact, Philadelphia minted Lincoln cents from this era normally carried no mint mark. That means a 1958 penny without a mint mark can be completely legitimate and can represent a coin struck at the Philadelphia Mint. This is one of the most important lessons for anyone searching through old pennies. A missing mint mark is only valuable when the circumstances make that absence unusual. You cannot assume that every coin without a mint mark is a rare error. The key is knowing what the United States Mint was doing during that particular year. And 1958 is an especially interesting year because it represents the final year of the original Lincoln wheat reverse, before the design changed in 1959 to feature the Lincoln Memorial. That alone gives the 1958 wheat penny an important place in American coin history. Millions of these coins entered circulation, but collectors today still pay attention to examples with unusual varieties, exceptional preservation, and attractive original surfaces. Now, let's examine the obverse. Abraham Lincoln's portrait dominates the front, and on our featured example there is light to moderate wear visible on Lincoln's hair and cheekbone. Those areas are among the first places a collector should inspect when trying to understand the coin's condition. The highest points of a portrait naturally experience friction as the coin circulates. Lincoln's hair can gradually lose sharpness, while the cheekbone can become smoother and less defined. When the wear is light to moderate, the coin can still retain a substantial amount of its original design detail. That is why the condition description matters. A circulated coin is not automatically undesirable. In fact, a well-preserved circulated wheat penny with strong original surfaces can still attract collector interest. But there is an enormous difference between an attractive circulated coin and a heavily damaged or cleaned coin. That is why you should look beyond the basic appearance. Check the fields surrounding Lincoln. Are they smooth? Do they show scratches? Are there unnatural hairlines? Does the surface look original? Is the color consistent with natural copper aging? These details can help tell the story of the coin. Now, turn it over, because the reverse is where the famous wheat penny identity becomes unmistakable. The two wheat stalks frame the inscriptions, creating the classic design collectors have recognized for generations. On this particular coin, visible wheat stalk details remain across the reverse. That is an encouraging sign because it indicates that circulation has not completely erased the design. Look closely at the individual lines within the wheat ears. Stronger surviving details can help demonstrate the amount of wear the coin experienced. But once again, do not stop at one feature. Inspect the lettering. Examine the denomination. Study the surrounding fields. Look at the rim from one side all the way around to the other. On our featured example, the inscriptions are described as clear and fully legible, while the rim is sharp and raised. That complete raised rim gives the coin a strong overall appearance and can help distinguish it from pieces that have suffered significant edge damage. Now we come to the color. The coin is described as having a smooth reddish-brown copper coloration. Copper coins are particularly fascinating because their appearance can change naturally over decades. Environmental exposure, storage conditions, handling, and oxidation can gradually transform the surface from brighter copper tones into reddish-brown or deeper brown shades. Collectors often pay close attention to copper color because original surfaces can be an important part of a coin's appeal. But there is a major warning here. Never try to improve the color yourself. If you have an old copper penny, do not polish it, scrub it, soak it in chemicals, or attempt to make it shine. Cleaning can leave permanent evidence on the surface and may substantially reduce collector desirability. Originality is far more important than artificial brightness. Now look carefully at the reverse again. Above the letter O, our featured coin has minor dark specks. This is one of those details that should make you investigate but not immediately celebrate. Dark specks can come from many different causes. They may represent natural toning, oxidation, environmental exposure, surface contamination, or damage. The exact appearance and texture matter. If the spots are simply part of the coin's natural patina and the surrounding surface remains smooth, they may have limited impact. If they represent corrosion or pitting, however, the situation could be very different. This is why professional examination can be important when dealing with coins claimed to be worth substantial amounts. Now, let's talk about the headline value of $25 zeroth. This is where responsible coin collecting requires us to separate an exciting valuation claim from established market evidence. A normal 1,958 Lincoln wheat penny without a mint mark is not automatically a $25,000 coin. Philadelphia produced large quantities of Lincoln cents, and ordinary circulated examples generally have values far below that figure. So if you discover a 1,958 penny without a mint mark, do not immediately assume you have a five-figure rarity. Instead, ask the more important question: what makes this specific coin different? Could it have a recognized die variety? Could it be an exceptional condition example? Could it have an unusual minting characteristic? Could it possess a rare combination of grade and original color? Those are the questions that matter. And because 1,958 was the final year of the wheat reverse, collectors may pay special attention to high-quality examples and documented varieties. The date itself makes the coin historically interesting, but rarity requires more than age. This is a mistake that new collectors make all the time. They see an old coin and assume old automatically means rare. But millions of old coins survive. True rarity depends on surviving population, condition, varieties, errors, demand, and documented market results. So when you hear a headline like 1958 penny worth $25,000, your first reaction should not be excitement alone. Your first reaction should be curiosity. What exactly is special about this coin? That mindset can save you from falling for exaggerated online claims while helping you identify coins that really do deserve further research. Now grab a magnifying glass and imagine you are examining this coin yourself. Start with the date. Make sure every digit is correct and clearly formed. Then inspect the area below the date. There is no mint mark, so compare the coin with known Philadelphia examples from 1958. Next, move upward and inspect Lincoln's hair, forehead, cheekbone, and jaw. Look for unusual raised lines, doubling, die cracks, or other characteristics that appear to have been created during the minting process. Be careful, because scratches that happened after the coin left the mint can look dramatic but usually do not represent valuable varieties. Then inspect the lettering. Look at Liberty and the motto. Are the letters normal? Is there any unusual doubling that matches a documented variety? Now flip the coin and study the wheat stalks. Follow the lines carefully. Examine the dark specks above the O. Determine whether they appear raised, recessed, stained, or simply part of the natural patination. Then inspect the rim. A sharp raised rim is an attractive characteristic, but it is still only one part of the overall assessment. If everything looks unusual, do not clean the coin. Preserve it exactly as found. If you genuinely suspect a rare variety, seek a professional attribution or grading opinion. And here is where the story of coin number 4 becomes even more interesting. This is not simply an old penny. It is potentially a final chapter coin from one of the most famous designs in American numismatic history. The 1958 wheat cent was among the last Lincoln cents to carry the wheat reverse that collectors had known since 1909. In 1959, the reverse changed to the Lincoln Memorial design, beginning a completely new chapter in the Lincoln cent series. That historical transition gives the 1958 coin an important place in collections. Imagine holding one in your hand and realizing that the next year, the United States Mint would introduce an entirely different reverse design. This is the kind of historical connection that makes coin collecting more than simply searching for money. You are holding an object that once passed through everyday American life. It may have been used to buy a newspaper, candy, groceries, or another small purchase. It may have sat in a cash register. It may have traveled across several states. Then decades later, it ended up in a collection waiting for someone to notice it. And that is why these coins are so much fun to investigate. Now, about the $25,000 figure. For this video, we are using that amount as the featured valuation scenario, but it should not be understood as the standard value of a normal 1958 Philadelphia wheat penny. A genuine $25,000 market valuation would require strong evidence supporting that specific coin's rarity and desirability. That could include a recognized variety, exceptional grade, or documented auction performance. Without that evidence, the coin should be valued according to its actual condition and characteristics rather than a sensational headline. This distinction is incredibly important for anyone building a serious collection. The internet is filled with videos and posts claiming enormous prices for ordinary coins, and sometimes those claims mix together auction records, speculative values, and rare varieties without clearly explaining the difference. A responsible collector should always verify the exact date, mint mark, variety, grade, and auction history before believing a huge number. Which rare U.S. coin should we cover next? Drop the coin name and year in the comments. Your suggestion could be our next big discovery. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more rare coin treasures.